This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana makes car selling fast and easy from start to finish. Enter your license plate or VIN and get a real offer in seconds, down to the penny. If you accept, Carvana will come pick up your car from your driveway. Or you can drop it off at one of our car vending machines. Either way, you get paid instantly. It's fast, transparent, and 100% online. Car selling that saves your time. That's Carvana.
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. Jay Kelly, the new film from Academy Award nominee Noah Baumbach. George Clooney stars as an actor confronting his past and present on a journey of self-discovery, alongside Adam Sandler as his devoted manager. Critics are calling it a declaration of love to the chaotic art of filmmaking, with the Wall Street Journal praising it as a transcendent comedy drama. Jay Kelly is now playing only on Netflix.
Welcome to Board Gamers Anonymous, the podcast where everyone's welcome at the table, but of course, as always, no one knows whose turn it is. This is Chris.
This is Anthony.
This is Will.
And this is episode 557, Your Ideal Tabletop Convention, Past Highlights and Future Wishes. We'd like to thank all our Patreon backers for helping us bring you a brand new episode. Hey friends, we're so glad to have you back this week, because Will is here. Hey, Will.
Hey, how's it going?
So good to have you here, because Will has been to many of a convention.
I've been to maybe hundreds at this point.
I was going to say just tabletop convention, but you've been to like a lot of different types of conventions.
Yeah, there was a couple of years there where I was going to over 24 conventions a year.
Oh, so can I submit him, Anthony, as a convention expert for the podcast?
I think so. Yes.
Is it allowed? It has been ruled.
Yeah. I think you and I are sitting at like 20, 25. Will's in the hundreds. I mean, come on. Can't even touch that.
Yeah, we just recently got back from PAX Unplugged, and obviously we're having our own conferences that are all about tabletop stuff. So we wanted to take a minute, especially in light of a recent email I got from our friends at Asmodee, who had a little media event, and they were asking about how they can make their kind of media outreach a little bit more dynamic and interesting, which got me thinking, because the three of us, and Megan, when she's here, often talk about, conventions that we go to is usually a very big expense. It's a heavy lift. It's a lot of travel. It's a ton of walking, but we really enjoy it. But on some level, even though we've had some really great experiences out there, we're always looking for something more. We're looking for something to like be the thing. Because usually when you go to a convention, there's always so much happening that once you leave the convention, you always feel like you didn't do enough or didn't do whatever it is you wanted to do. So we want to talk about this episode about our ideal type of experiences we've had at different conventions, or we might throw a conference in or two in there. And then theorize and imagine what might be some really great experiences to have at conventions. So I did all the outreach to the internet. I got a lot of comments from out there that we're going to talk about in here, and also share with you some of our ideas about, hey, it would be really cool if they did this, that, and the other. So feel free to add this to your upcoming convention, because I think it'd be a lot of fun. Well, that said, let's get into the episode. So starting off, of course, as always, Will, before we get into all the convention fun stuff, let's talk about the games we want to get to the table at a convention. Let's roll for preview. What do you have up for this week?
So this week, it will be a great surprise to many people who have been listening.
What?
I got Scales of Fate from my Kickstarter, and I wish to play it.
It happened.
Yeah, it exists. It is in my hands currently. It is very pretty. I have not played it yet.
Oh no, that's why it's a preview.
Yeah, it's a preview. It's a very attainable preview. The dream is that
Mm-hmm.
in the near future, I will find somebody who wants to play this game with me.
Oh, man.
Is there a chance by the end of the episode you have played the game and therefore could review it by the end?
I will have to be kind of quiet for
Uh-huh.
most of the episode, but we could probably make it work.
Okay. Speed play, go.
Yeah, hold on, guys. Let me just set it up and start reading the rule book.
You're just mumbling in the background, like, this is what you do with the thing and the thing. I'm like, what?
It'll be particularly interesting because it is a social deduction sort of like strategy mind games kind of game. So I'll be like mind gaming myself over the course of it, which will be very meta.
Maybe don't be quiet. That would be great to listen to.
Just speak aloud your internal monologue of playing this game against yourself.
Yeah, but you gotta give an accent to one of yourselves. So
I can
we
do
know the
that.
difference.
I have a lot of accents. I can do this.
I think early on we did talk about this. I think our early reviews, Anthony, we actually kind of walk through the setup and the rules of games, like almost reading the rule book.
Yeah, back in the day, we would spend probably, I think about 10 minutes was usually about how long it would be, like going over, this is how we learned the game, and this is who is there, and this is the process, and this is the rules.
Yeah.
It was very thorough.
Yeah, because we imagine a scenario where someone would listen to the actual podcast and could like learn how to set up and play the game.
Right. Yeah.
Turns out nobody wants that, Anthony.
No, well, you fast forward a decade and people are like, but YouTube? And they're like, yeah, you're right.
Although, to be fair, too, even when it comes to YouTube, like, it's not really an easy situation to, like, have the YouTube screen big enough out there so you could set up the table and, like, stop it 20, 30 times to try to figure out where all the pieces go. And so it's kind of exasperating when people just jump through the setup and they're just like, oh, and then you put the things over there. I'm like, what are those things? I've never seen this game before.
Yeah.
There are the things there.
I never use the video for setup. I always do the setup out of the rule book, and then I'll read. Then I'll watch the video for the play. Unless the rule book doesn't have pictures of the setup, which is the biggest crime you could ever commit in a rule book.
Yes.
Don't do that. Stop it. I hate that. I'm like,
also,
they're referencing like you move the rambunctious little goat into the third space. I'm like, none of these pieces are a goat. What are you talking about?
Well, that's the other part, too, when they don't name the components in the rule book. So sometimes they'll actually show the setup, but they won't tell you what those things are. So that's always fun.
There's like 12 decks of cards, and they're like, put this deck here. And I'm like, which deck is that? I don't know which deck that is.
That's a thing. Well, that being said, let's jump back. So, Will, before we interrupt you, Scales of Fate.
Yes.
Right? This is from Ivy Studio. What is it? It's a game. We know that.
It is a game, in fact. Yes, it is same people that made Veiled Fate, same people that made Pillars of Fate. So I played Veiled Fate for the first time last year, really got into it, big fan. Basically, the premise of all of their games to some degree, or at least from this series, is that they are deduction games that involve a certain amount of like strategy and tactical sort of mind playing with other people. And doing mind games and deception and things like that. The premise of this game, consistent with the other two games, is that you are playing as a god that has dominion over some demigods, and your objective is to win influence throughout multiple ages of history by manipulating demigods and, in this case, fighting one other person, because it's a two-player game. So there is another god that is doing the same thing that you are, and your objective is to kind of throw them off the trail while scoring as many points as possible.
Gotcha. So this is the Veiled Fate cinematic universe kind of worlds, realms. And we talked about this last week a little bit. Like they all play different. But again, still in that same genre. Very nice production too, by the way. I'm taking a look at the pictures here.
Their games are very beautiful, and all of them, to my understanding, have like some sort of upgraded components as well. So I know for when I played Veiled Fate for the first time with you all, we happened to be with somebody who had like the ridiculous all metal edition, and there was like a 3D printed castle thing. It was nuts. That was a really nice game.
So for you, you're not like hardcore board gamer. You're more role play game situation. You do love games just generally, but like, so what drew you to this? Like, what brought you over to the dark side here of tabletop components?
Yeah, so I think one of the big things for me was the deception and deduction component of it. That's been something that was really a big fan my whole life. Like when I was a kid, we'd be at camp, we play Mafia, right? Where you're just, sitting around playing a camp game, kind of like Werewolf, this sort of idea, like One Night Werewolf. I played all those games as a kid and, had really good experience with those, really enjoyed the social dynamics that happen into it. And that's actually one of the reasons why I went into the profession I went into, right? Psychology, the sort of dynamics of people in spaces and things like that. And so that was what originally drew me to Veiled Fate, that it had sort of that component of it. But I really, really liked how it mapped onto the mechanics of a board game, right? Because something like Mafia or Werewolf, it's pretty rules light. You have to know some stuff, but there isn't really a lot of stuff to do in the game. And that's one of the things I like about Veiled Fate is everybody is really like gears turning the whole time, thinking about stuff, really engaged in the game, which is something I really enjoy. I really like a process where it's consistent, where you're paying attention to the board, where you're mapping out what's going on. I feel like sometimes when I'm playing a really heavy game, sometimes I will be very lost watching other people take their turns, not really always understanding, or taking some time to kind of chew on something. And then, by the time it gets to your turn, you're like, oh yeah, I was supposed to be figured out what I was going to do this turn, wasn't I?
Every time, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, I'm appreciative of obviously the kind of the growth there that they've done with the game. So I'm interested to see where it goes next.
Yeah, I think it's really cool and interesting. I like what they've done with the idea that Veiled Fate has a 2-player mode, but I think when we played it, it was 5 or 6 or something like that, maybe even 7.
There's a lot of people.
There's a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I think the game is best played at those higher player counts. I think you can play it at lower player counts, but I think it's different. They did a good job, I think, of breaking up the original to sort of have it plays a little bit like this at 2 players. It plays a little more like this at 3 to 5, and it plays a little more like this at 6 and 7. So I like the implementation of their 2 recent games are 2-player only, but have the same kind of gameplay, the same kind of game, but a different nuts and bolts mechanical game that all are sort of meant to sort of represent each other and be sort of in the same universe. But, if it's the kind of style of game you like, now you have multiple ways to play it, right?
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Like, especially from a company like that where everything is so pretty. So there is, like, it makes it seem like there is even more of a reason why they all exist. It's like, we have a different spin on the art here, or we have a different spin on the mechanics here.
Yeah, it's one of the things I really like about it, too, that it's all consistent, has a very similar design language, and all of it looks really pretty and looks, sort of premium, I suppose. But the idea of, now you have multiple things and you're experiencing the same kind of thing, because I know we've all had the experience, right? Oh, I love this game, but I don't get to play it as often as I want, right? I can't always get the optimal amount of people to play this game. I like this because there's a world where, I can usually convince one other person to play this game, and I might get more regular play out of one of the smaller games and might have a better opportunity to then introduce them to maybe the bigger version of the game.
Yeah, Veiled Fates is a hard lift because how many people you need to play that well? Like 5, 6?
Yeah, when we played it, I thought that was close to the optimal experience, and it was 5, 6, 7 people.
Yeah, I feel like it was 7. I think it was.
I think we were maxed. Yeah, because I think we had
the expansion. We had all the players, and then obviously since we had so many players, we had the special characters.
Yeah, which I thought was really cool. And actually, the expansion is like a little hard to find now, interestingly, because it like came out in one run and hasn't come out with the second one, I guess. But yeah, that was a really good time, and we had this sort of like all the extra characters with all the different things that totally changed the gameplay rules, which also I do think is something that you could get away with in Veiled Fate more than you could get away with in a 2-player version, for example.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Veiled Fate can be kind of crazy and break things and spin it off in different directions. 2-player games have to be pretty balanced.
Yeah, it has to be really specific, right? Which is something I like about this version is they've made it different even from the other 2-player version of the game, but the concepts are the same. It's sort of the structure being there's 3 ages, you're fighting for dominance, you are trying to do these things. It even carries over some of the mechanics from Veiled Fate, whereas like in Veiled Fate, you're maybe moving different pieces, but the pieces you're moving aren't your pieces necessarily. They could be a bluff that you're doing or, things like that. In Scales of Fate, you actually play as 2 colors of the demigod characters. And so there's some strategic choices that you make there of, are you going to try to move them together and like do all the things to score as many points on both of them as possible? Or are you going to tank one of your plays to deceive your opponent? Or, are you going to move their pieces maybe?
Very cool.
Excellent. All right. Well, that leaves us on to our roll for review. So, Anthony, what did you play this week?
All right. So I got a chance to play the new expansion, the much anticipated expansion for SETI, Space Agencies. So we received this as a review copy at PAX Unplugged and got a chance to get it to the table. This is the first expansion for SETI, and it is, we joked about it being the Prelude expansion, and it is more or less exactly that. It also has a little bit of Underwater Cities expansion in it too, with the quick start cards. And so I'll zoom out a little bit here. I'm not going to run through all the rules of SETI, but the thing about that game is it takes place over 5 rounds. And over the course of those 5 rounds, you are building up a lot of infrastructure, right? You have a tableau that you're building up. You have different resources that you're gathering and collecting, and you have your income that you're building. Income in particular takes a little while to build, and so for the first couple of rounds, like when you start the game, you have a bunch of stuff. Second and third round, a little bit less stuff, and then fourth and fifth round, you can do a billion things, right? It just kind of snowballs eventually. So the game, it doesn't necessarily start super slow, but it deadens after that, similar to like a Terraforming Mars, where like, and the feeling then is that the game starts slow because you're not doing all the big stuff until like round 4, right? Which is like an hour and a half into the game. And so what this does is it takes the cool thing that happens in round 2 of SETI, right, which is the discovery of the alien species, which almost always is round 2, and it adds 3 new ones that are pretty dynamic and interesting. I think they're pretty interesting how they integrate with the game, and then it adds a whole module or 2 modules that make the game more asymmetrical and start faster, and the game is actually now shorter. So we'll run through that real quick. First up, you have quick start cards. So the quick start cards, you're going to have 2 of them at the beginning of the game. You're going to, I think, 4 that you draw, and you keep 2. And what these do is they give you starting positions on the map. It could be satellites around certain planets. It could be markers on certain alien species. It could be signals at certain star locations. Basically stuff that would take you a third to half the opening round to do. You're seeding out on the map. So it's just jumping you ahead effectively. And you can kind of choose the direction you want to go. You also get some bonus resources in the form of like extra data or publicity or just points. Again, kind of jumping you ahead a little bit. These are more like the Underwater Cities expansion, where if you take those kind of early jump starts, you can kind of it's basically skip ahead, and in that case, especially, you chop off a round of the game.
Sure.
In this case, you also chop off a round of the game, but the difference here is that this is a 5-round game, whereas Underwater Cities is a 8-round game or 9-round game.
Sure.
So you're actually removing 20% of the game by having this quick start stuff, which I think is good. Normally I'd be like, oh, you're taking away some of the game, but the game runs long, especially with 3 or 4 players. This game can take 3 or 4 hours to play, which is a little too long for what it is. It's not that complicated of a game. It takes a long time because you have so much going on, and especially late in the game, you get so many resources. So you're chopping off that first round where people are kind of thinking and not sure which way to go, and it's just a sandbox. And when you have a sandbox in a game like this, people take a really long time to figure out what they want to do, or you go in one direction and then everybody else kind of goes in a similar direction, and you're like, well, now crud, I can't really do anything over here. I should have gone over there. Well, it's too late. So the quick start cards give you direction, which is great. The other big piece that gives you direction is the organizations. So this is Prelude, right? This is the it's the thing that comes in the game already. In like Terraforming Mars, you have the corporation. So you have that and the special power, but it also gives you like a special starting resources, and those vary dependingly. So you get additional stuff. You might get extra satellites out. You might get extra income to start the game. It varies. But the main thing here is you now have additional income to start the game. You have a different direction that you're going. You have some kind of special power that breaks the game just consistently throughout. So like orbital dynamics, for example, lets you have 2 probes. That it just to start the game. And you actually will launch with those 2 probes. Like they start the game on the board, which is huge, right? That's 4 money right off the bat you don't have to pay. It also gives you a free action, and they all have this. 1 free action you can take every round. In the case of orbital dynamics, which is the one I played in the first game I played, you can move any 2 of your probes once each, which can be very powerful, especially if you time it right. You can get them out to the same location. With this one, I was able to get 2 probes, 2 planets in the first round and land them, and then get 2 new probes out, all in the first round, which impossible without the expansion. It would take 2 or 3 rounds to do all that. And so it gives you a purpose and direction. Like, I'm playing orbital dynamics. I need to launch probes. That is what I'm doing. That's my game. That's what I'm going to do. And you get the choice at the beginning. So if you don't want to do that, you're like, I don't want to launch probes, then don't take that, organization. That's a bad choice. So there are a bunch of them. I'm not going to run through like all 11, but there are a lot of cool things that you can do. Like Xenolab, for example, has these special action tiles that they're like these little cube box things like from a lab. And so on your turn, you can flip one of them over and perform the action on it for a lower cost. And if you get alien traces, you can flip the matching action tiles over so it can be used again. So it's kind of a cool way. Like you get these bonus actions for discounts, and then you can kind of, if you do the research, you can flip them over and do that again. So it encourages you to go find those alien traces. But they're different ones. So it depends on, the 3 different directions of the game you can take. So it's just a lot of interesting stuff. And the cool thing is there's 11 of these. So, similar to playing Terraforming Mars, one of the reasons I love that game so much, especially when it came out, is there were 10 or 15 corporations out of the box. And then with all the expansions, there's like 30 now. That's a lot of different ways to play that game. And a lot of replayability, especially from the solo side, but really just in general. And people can kind of pick and choose and decide what kind of play they want to have. Like, do you want to do a publicity focused play? Do you want to do a probe focused play? Do you only want to search for signals? Do you really want to go after the alien species? Like, what do you want to do? And then there are organizations that you can get to focus on those things. So I think, I'm not surprised that it's good. We could look at the box that was posted online in advance and be like, oh, that looks good. It'll probably be good. And hey, look at this. It is. So the unique powers and asymmetric start in the game is kind of the main selling point here. Again, it's SETI Prelude. And it has, it cuts off a whole round of the game. I would say the game was slightly shorter. They strongly recommend that you do not play with 5 rounds if you're using the quick start cards, because it will go too long. And it'll do that thing. You can kind of see it. Like, it'll do that thing that Euros do if you play a little bit too long, where suddenly everything spirals out of control and you can do everything and all the tracks max out. Sure. It's not fun anymore. So, like, you lose that tightness. So 4 rounds instead of 5, which I love. A little bit shorter. 11 organizations, lots of different options in there. You start the game with extra income, which is fantastic because income's hard to get. 3 new alien species. Don't want to spoil those because for me, that's a lot of the fun of the game is discovering the different aliens. But I will say there's some really interesting strategy for a couple of them. And one has a really fun, it's not that deep, but it's a fun little language puzzle where you're like have to decode some stuff based on where they go on the different parts of the board. And that's really fun. There are 42 new cards as well to throw into the deck. You just shuffle them in. I don't know what that does for balance or anything, but this game hasn't reached that point for me where I have an issue with the deck size or the balance or trying to find a card I need, because every card does like 5 things. So most of the time it's fine. And there is a new solo mode here to make it compatible with all that extra stuff. So they brought in new long-term goals, which are a little bit different than the short-term goals that you use to time out the solo game. I play with them a little bit. I don't have opinions one way or the other. It's basically the same thing. So it's just a way to adjust for the fact that it's a 4-round game instead of a 5-round game now, and to be able to use the organizations, the quick start cards. So if you have SETI and you like it, you will also like this. I think that's easy to say.
Sure.
If you've played SETI and you didn't love it, but you didn't hate it, I do highly recommend playing Space Agencies, because I think it shaves off a lot of that starting roughness. Like that all these games have. Anytime you're, especially space games, like you're building something up and you have to go out and you have to get income and you have to get resources, and then you're going to spend those resources and eventually you'll have a cool thing going. This just gets you to the cool thing faster, right? So if you're like, this game's taking too long and I haven't done as much of the fun stuff as I want to, then Space Agencies addresses that. Whether it does enough for you, depends on your situation. But I think it's definitely a must-have expansion. I think any other expansion that comes out in the future, presumably, or at least I hope, will have new organizations and more quick start cards, just for more variability. So similarly, how we're going to get new alien species every time, because of course you would, we should also get new organizations every time. I hope. So yeah, SETI, Space Agencies, that's a buy. It's an easy buy.
Nice.
Like I assumed it would be. I would have bought it otherwise when it comes available. I don't think it's available yet. I think it got stuck on a ship somewhere, but it should be out like next month, I think.
No, it sounds great. I mean, we were really looking forward to this, because while I really did like so much of the game, I did feel it was too long. I did feel it was a little too abstracted and a little obtuse as far as the scoring was concerned. But generally still a very good game overall.
Yeah, no, it's and like when you and I played, we played in a group of 4, and that game took like 4.5 hours. It was too long. It was far too long.
Sure.
But the box on this is it says 40 minutes per player. I think it's closer to like 80, 70 or 80. It's so like a 2-player game could take 2.5, 3 hours.
Sure.
So a 4-player game, it really, really drags. So yeah, chopping off 20% of that, I think is huge.
Well, I even generally like that. I mean, just the vibe or just the construction, because Will, you looked at this with us too.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like just an endless abstract. I wouldn't say boondoggle, like it just, it didn't read for me, like I didn't see. I mean, we played it; it was good, and I liked it, and I have a copy right behind me here. Actually, in fact, I unboxed it, because now here, obviously, the expansion here. But I love the idea, not just that we're cutting the time out here, but that the new corporations and the goals obviously are helping us focus towards different strategic pathways, which are now just more clear.
Yeah,
and I really appreciate that, because I don't think there was anything wrong with the game, other than when you're coming into the game, you may not appreciate or feel all the different intricacies as far as, where should I go, how could I go here, because like you mentioned early on, which is true about the game, like someone starts doing the probing and you're like, oh no, like that's I'm behind, or someone starts landing, oh, I'm behind that. Like there's 1 or 2 pathways to go, because not everything is incentivized equally. But now with the new corporations and the starting resources and everything, I can do my own thing. Yeah. I can explore different pathways and production and innovations to kind of, instead of like, uh-oh, you got that piece, I need to get that piece quick before it runs out.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is the game is very well balanced and everything is equally incentivized, but it's super obtuse early on.
Yeah,
where that is and how to get it, because there are certain things that get you bonuses that you can't then get later, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the spaces on those alien tracks are limited. You want to be one of the people to discover an alien because you get free cards out of it. You want to be able to the first one to land on a planet because you get a bonus for doing that.
Sure.
But when you're first playing it, like the first couple times you play it, you can't really see that because it's all just there, right? It's just bleh, everything's out on the board. So you're basing your actions almost entirely on the cards that are in your hand, which may or may not correlate to the things you actually want to do. So yeah, everything you're saying is true. Like now you have a focus, and I don't know if all 11 organizations are quote unquote balanced or give you like a good focus or a direction to go. And I'm sure somebody will go through and kind of give us a tier list here in the next couple months of just like which of these is good for beginners and which is a little more hard to play.
Sure.
Similar to Terraforming Mars. But it's just knowing up front, like, okay, the thing I should do for the first 2 rounds is build probes, send them to planets, land those probes. That is all I'm working on. It really narrows the focus. It makes it easier to know what cards to take when you're drafting cards up. Makes it easier to know like what actions to take or what income to take. Which in turn cuts way down on the AP and makes the game a little bit quicker. I'm not gonna say it eliminates AP because people still want to think, but and there's a lot to think about. But you don't have like the infinite smorgasbord of options now. You have a much smaller tableau of options, a charcuterie board of options. So yeah, I think it does all that well. And if any of that sounds like if you've played the game and we're like it's not quite there, but maybe, or if you've just never played it, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah, again, I just think like I think that's the right point, right? That it was all out there quasi available, but not obvious. And this gives us real pathways to kind of explore. So maybe after you play this a lot, the expansion, then you can go back to the base game and be like, oh, I know how to run this now.
Yeah.
I could play this out. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to definitely pick this up. All right. Well, that's everything that we previewed and reviewed. Now on to the feature review. So our feature review this week, of course, we are talking about your ideal tabletop convention. This is the places you go for all the fun that you want to have. But of course, the fun comes in a lot of different colors, shapes, and flavors, not just from tabletop, but a lot of fun conventions you might have had. So we're going to talk about past highlights and future wishes. So my friends, we've been to conventions together. We've been to conventions and conferences apart. We've had some good times and some not so good times out there. We want to kind of talk highlights. So maybe starting off with, I got a couple of suggestions out here. You know, some on the fun side, some on the little bit more tricky side. And take a look at those and then look at our own kind of experiences and how hopefully these conventions could be a little bit better for more gamers. So start off with here, one of the things that we talked about on the last episode, we talked about the libraries at tabletop conventions and what games were selected. I think one of the interesting things and some of the feedback here from that was, yes, it's great that those libraries exist and there's a lot of games there and some of the same games keep getting played because people know them. If you've ever been to a board game convention out there, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of tables. But again, what do you know how to play? And that's usually kind of lends itself to what you're going to play. It would be wonderful if there was actually somebody at a tabletop convention that could actually help you choose the right game or a new game, especially. So if there could be a game sommelier, someone that just like helps you pick a wine that goes with food, maybe you can go up to the library and say, hey, we like these games. What would you recommend for us to play that might be new? So it could be something a little bit different. It could be something in the same genre or something that's in the hotness. So that might be something that works, right?
Yeah, I think that's a cool idea. I think occasionally we've had this experience at PAX, like in the first look section. A little bit less now because I feel like the last
Sure.
2 years the first look section has been like good luck finding an employee. But early on, like the first few years of PAX, if you'd wander around, you'd find somebody. And I remember specifically asking someone, like, what's a good game for the two of us? And that's how we found Living Forest. They're just like, oh, this is a good game people are liking. It's good at 2. And like, oh, great. Never heard of it. They taught it real quick. We played it. We loved it.
Yeah.
And so they do that well, or did that well in the past, but I've never actually seen it organized like in a way that's
Sure.
helpful. So yeah, I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I think we get the game libraries, but we don't typically get a game librarian.
Right, yeah.
And I think we need a game librarian. Like you said, I usually go to the conventions, we look around, we try to find some things that we know, and then we ask an adult.
Right.
Just like, hey, you know things. I'm not saying we don't know things, but you probably also know things. Like you mentioned Living Forest, but we also, I remember speaking to one of the PAX first look teachers, and I think he was the one who turned us on to Obsession and also Smartphone Inc.
Yeah, that was like the best year we ever had.
Yeah, we hit like
Underwater Cities and Smartphone and Obsession, Barrage. Yeah.
So I do think that's something that I mean, I would love for PAX to kind of institute, because they do have such a great library. But I think all the gaming libraries need a librarian.
Yeah.
At least to be able to help guide people through that process.
Yeah, there should be a rule. You can't call yourself a library unless you have a librarian.
And really, you should get a game librarian, like somebody out there, like our friend Jen, the game librarian,
right?
Who would be great for, helping direct people to the right games. Because again, it's a very big process, and this is what typically happens. And Anthony knows this, because I'm often running off trying to be a do-gooder and helping people pick out games and then learn games very quickly as I play a game at the same time. And it drove Anthony crazy at that point. But yeah, I mean, I turned a lot of people on to Obsession. They're like, what? Because a lot of like newbies who come to game conventions, they're like, they don't know what to play. It's so much out there, and they want to play something cool and hot and hip and something they could tell people about. But what would that be?
Yeah,
and that's really the challenge there.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
All right. Well, next one, and something that we've experienced a couple different times at game conventions here, is a game escape room, or some kind of game LARPing experience. So, what was the one we were talking about, Anthony, at Gen Con, the big one?
The big one, yeah, Gen Con, and I guess they had it at Origins. I don't know if they still do, but they did last month there, is True Dungeon.
True Dungeon, which is a very cool... I think you probably would say it's officially an escape room. It's not a LARP experience.
Yeah, True Dungeons is interesting, because it's kind of both. Like, it's big, right? And it's a lot of different rooms that you don't necessarily go into, and you come into it with like these chips and upgrades and stuff, and you can kind of build those up over time. So it does feel more like live action role playing. Like, it feels like a LARP, but individual rooms can be escape rooms, right? I remember being in rooms where we had to accomplish certain goals to move on to the next room. So kind of a combination of the two. Mm-hmm. It's its own thing. It's a cool thing. It was just really expensive.
It's very expensive. But I think it's one of those kind of destination things, like you're going to the convention so you can engage with that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, True Dungeon has its own followers.
Oh yeah, people are nuts. Because like we got our little baggie, like we paid our $50. We got our one little baggie with like 4 chips in it. There were people there who had like cases, like fishing tackle cases from Home Depot with like 1,000 chips in them. Like, you have done this a lot.
And the secondary market on those is pretty crazy.
Yeah. It's nuts.
Well, have you ever been to True Dungeon?
I was adjacent to it the last time we went to Gen Con, because I had gone to some event and I was talking to somebody and they had just come out of it, or they had done it earlier in the day or something. They were telling me about it, and they gave me one of the chips, because they're like, "Oh, you should go try it," and I never ended up doing it, but it seemed interesting to me, especially the idea of sort of the scale of it, especially at something like Gen Con, where it's massive, right?
Yeah, and at Gen Con, it's like in the basement of the football stadium, which is kind of a cool place to be. Like, you're in the bowels of the football stadium.
Yeah, it's a great experience. It's something you can kind of take back with you. And I think, if I remember correctly, Anthony, the True Dungeon had a puzzle track and then more of a fighting track.
Yeah.
Which was kind of cool. But I'd like to see a lot more of those escape room kind of experiences, because I think they're a lot of fun and they could be very unique for that particular convention.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have to necessarily just be like D&D style, right? Like,
no, it could be really anything.
Yeah, because like True Dungeon, it's not D&D. It's like, legally distinct, but it's
yes,
it's fantasy role playing, right? But there's so many different types of role playing, or you could even have some of these role playing games. They could develop,
sure,
like take some of the challenges that are in the game and build a room out of it. People could play 100%. Through it. That'd be fun.
I mean, and a convention hall is basically a bunch of rooms anyway. So
right.
take some rooms and make some escape rooms too.
Yeah.
All right. Another pitch here for a room is actually a kind of a speed dating kind of situation where you have a lot of these indie publishers, these indie designers. I think one of the challenges that we faced, I think last year at PAX Unplugged, was they had an indie night and all the indie games were kind of set up and you had to walk through a line. And by the time I think we got even like a quarter of the way through the line, the games were done. Like people had purchased the indie copies of the games, and like the designers were like, "Well, I'm out," kind of thing. And I think it's a shame because I really love to kind of experience those indie designs, sometimes even more than the big box demo games, because those games from like the big publishers, you're going to see somewhere else. But the indie games you may never get to see. So one of the ideas here is to have the indie games set up in like a speed dating kind of situation where they all have separate tables, and then you sit down with them and then get to go through their games for like 3 to 5 minutes, check it out, and then move on, because that's a kind of experience that you don't typically have at a lot of game conventions. And I think it's a thing you miss out a lot on because the big publisher is so big that you're going to hear regardless. I want to sit down and experience something that's unique.
Right.
So that might be something that would be fun.
Yeah, that was an interesting little thing to walk through, but you're right. It was almost upsetting because you could see some cool stuff, but they
yes.
already added the games. And then the games that were left over, you're like, is that one okay? I don't know.
Yeah, so like every fifth game, it just had a lot of copies, I think. But then again, like at the same time, they're focused on selling, which I completely understand. But I would really like to learn more about their game because eventually it's probably going to go to a big publisher anyway.
Right.
So I think that's a thing. All right, well, next up here, an idea for a tabletop Olympics. This is one of the ideas that came out of PAX because PAX has, and forgive me, I'm forgetting the name here. Is it the Omegathon?
Omegathon, yep.
All right, I did get it right. Cool.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing we see every year, but we do not participate in it.
Never been. I always wanted to go, but then it felt like a big investment of time.
Yeah, and basically it's running through a lot of mostly classic board games, I think, if I remember correctly.
It varies, yeah. I mean, but it's generally shorter things, right? Because they have to get a lot of games
of course.
In.
You play the games in the winners, they cut up people, so by the end, there's a super winner here. The interesting take here is all the things that we do in tabletop gaming is pretty diverse, right? There's a lot of kind of interesting stuff. So the little things that you do in tabletop gaming, like shuffling a deck of cards, a lot of people out there are probably very good at that, and that's a very big part of the game. So we were talking about competitions like the fastest deck shuffle, dice stacking, flicking when there's like, those dexterity games that you have to flick, so having people compete in those kind of situations. Competitive puzzle building, obviously big part of tabletop stuff. Blindfold meeple sorting. And again, it's just that kind of idea that like we are dealing with a lot of the components all the time when we play tabletop games. So why not have little kind of fun competitions based upon those things? Because typically it's something we do, like card sleeving, like have a card sleeving competition. Who could sleeve a copy of Marvel Legacy as fast as possible?
God, legendary. Yeah, it would be fun for like 10 minutes, and then eventually someone's like, "This is going to take an hour."
Yeah, well, but you got your copy, all sleeved, so there you go.
Yeah, that's true.
Like that, it's a double duty, as it was something they were going to do anyway, but they're competing for it now.
You might as well compete while you're here. Yeah,
that's right. I got some games. Who wants to sleeve my games? We'll call it a competition.
That is funny.
But again, it's a lot of those kind of, I think, little mental challenges. When you play like a lot of RPG games in particular, it mainly comes down to sometimes dealing with, again, depending on the edition of what game you're playing, sometimes it's a lot of mathematics. That could be a kind of like speed mathematics situation, or It could be one of those things where like somebody gives you a riddle and you have to figure it out, because that's also another, RPG thing that comes into play. Or it could be like, hey, here's a scenario, try to come up with the most unique, creative way to get out of it without combat, for example. So just taking those smaller elements of games that you typically engage with often and actually have that as part of like a larger tabletop Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, like the skills competition they have at like the NBA All-Star game, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, dunk contest, 3-point contest, dribbling, whatever they do there. I don't watch NBA much, but
strikes me as almost a combination of decathlon and academic decathlon at the same time.
Yeah, that's great.
One of the things that I think we've done on some different levels, right? When you go to a convention, it's obviously you want to see everything, but oftentimes it's a lot of effort with, very little payback. And sometimes now, what a lot of conventions do, especially the smaller ones, is they typically have some sort of scavenger hunt or sticker book or stamp book that if you go around to the right publishers, you can get a gift, or if you have to get enough stamps, you can get some sort of reward.
Right.
Taking that, obviously, at a larger convention is going to be insane. But it could be something to do over that weekend that you are searching for something or trying to find something. So it doesn't have to be some super competitive scavenger hunt, but something along the lines of like some bigger mega game situation where people decide to play this kind of game at a convention, and maybe the goal is X, right? Like try to find all the games that use purple meeples, for example. And then that could be something that through the convention you could kind of like show up or cite on your phone. So like it provides an ongoing conversation of the experiences that you're having.
Yeah, that's fun.
I think it'd be interesting, especially in a world where you could kind of play around with it. I remember I took a class one time where with one of our activities, we had to try to find the best way to measure how many red books there were in a library. And it was sort of like, oh, okay, this is an activity that everyone's doing and the answers are going to be different. And I guess someone could win, I suppose. But it was more about the community building experience of like, oh, then you would talk to other people. How did you do this? What did they come up with?
And again, it's one of those things where it's just about gathering information that you're normally gathering, but put it into some kind of gamified form. Like a lot of those, like you were mentioning, Will, a lot of like those kind of dynamic interviews where they're like, well, how many windows are there in New York City? Like, how would you even figure that out? So, but if you did something convention-wise, you could pull some information from attending there and like have an interesting take on things.
Yeah, I was thinking something almost like an online game where there's like a community event, and if the community does X, Y, or Z, there's a reward kind of a thing.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Absolutely. Or, for example, at our last convention, we were tabletop gamers, and also at the same time there was a marathon running at the same time. So how could you incorporate those two? I don't know. Like,
I mean, we did with a convention.
But like, what if we got some of the runners to play tabletop games, and like everyone we got like a bonus or something like that?
Yeah, but then they want us to run, and we would die.
No, we would. Yeah, we'd be like, can you run with our copy of Gloomhaven? Because see what we have to deal with, because we're the real athletes.
Give them a board game bag, and they're just running.
Okay, imagine the hall just opened, and they've got a copy of Lord of the Rings trick-taking game across there. You got to get there faster than anybody else. Go.
We could hire them as Sherpas next year.
Right.
They can carry all the games for us because they have the light strength for it.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Well, another idea here is all different lounges that are based upon a specific type of game. So you could have a social deduction lounge.
Ooh.
You could have a quiet room for heavy gamers. You could have a more, and you see this a lot of D&D rooms where it's just D&D games playing throughout. But typically the challenge with those things is that it's just a general flat room. We want more theming in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And we want the environment. Like, we play a lot of like heavy games. I want lower lights. I want no sound or white noise because I have to focus there. Where the social deduction gamers, they could be as loud as they want. So let's design a room that actually fits them, and also close the door at the same time so we don't have to hear them. But nonetheless, Game rooms that people are playing those games. Like we used to play, we used to play a lot of different games, but I know like going to game night and it was like the Euro gamers and the social deduction gamers, and they're like two separate sides of the room. And I think you should just lean into that and just have rooms for different game types. I think that would fit.
I mean, I think
that'd be fun.
Yeah, I think it'd be good, especially if you get on brand with all the theming. Like, give me a tabletop RPG room with a bard in it, you know?
Yeah. That'd be cool. Yeah, and like part of the thing, like at conventions, I always think to myself, this would be a great place to play these bigger, heavier games because I don't really have time at home. But it's so loud and often so bright that it's hard to sit and stare at the board and like focus and think. Like I knew a few people here in Philly who I play TI4 with occasionally, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna play TI4 at the convention because they're giving out prizes and stuff." And I was like,
"Yeah,
I could not sit in that convention hall for 8 hours playing Twilight Imperium 4. I think I would claw my eyes out. Like it's not. I love that game, but I want to play that game in like a cozy space.
That's true. Yeah, and I think there are certain spaces that lend themselves to certain activities, and just like certain tables really work, and some other tables don't.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that would always be nice. Now, Will, I got one here for you. I think you might like this as a dice gremlin. A dice spa, where you get to drop off your dice and get them cleaned, oiled, polished, and then even blessed by a dice cleric, and then returned in a satin pouch.
I love this idea. I have questions about the credentialing of the cleric, but I could be into this. And we all know that one person who is preternaturally lucky. That guy has a job now. Dice cleric.
Right? It's like a Poké Center for dice.
If they do like a sound, like a similar to but legally distinct set of sounds when you get your dice back, I'm sold. I'll take all my dice.
Like, remember when Megan got those kind of, how would you say, those blind boxes for dice?
Mm-hmm.
And they always, for some reason, no matter the expense of the dice, they always come in that really garbagey, crinkly, plastic little tiny bag.
Yeah.
If you're spending a lot of money on fancy, colorful dice, they got to be ready to go. You know, they got to be shiny and
ready for prime time.
Treated right.
Yeah,
100%.
Well, if you're a person that uses like the same couple sets of dice or something, they're not gonna look exactly as they used to, right? And maybe that's cool. Yeah. Maybe you like that sort of thing, but also, it's a craftsman that cares about their tools takes care of them.
Right.
And I don't know if you know about this, Will, but there is, and I remember the exact term for this, but they're not escape rooms, but they're kind of like rage rooms where you go in there and you start breaking stuff, and it's supposed to be really cathartic. What if, as part of this dice spa, there was a spot with just giant hammers where you could smash dice that have wronged you, and they know it?
I appreciate that this is an escalation from the like consistent branding that you now see everywhere at tabletop stuff with like dice jails and like dice dunce caps and stuff like that. Like, no, let's dispense with the formalities. I will give you a solve. Go for it.
It's a dice murder now. Yeah.
I'm on board. I mean, my only thing is you might have to do the whole set. Because like you get rid of your D6s or something, like, okay, well, like the whole matching set's gone. But also, look, if you're casting Fireball a lot and the D6s aren't doing what you're supposed to do, maybe you got to get rid of them.
It'd be a dice dungeon where you could kind of give away your dice to be like incarcerated forever. And I don't, if you remember this as far as Gen Con would have, I don't know, what was it called, Anthony, where they used to set up all the cards, Cardvala or
Cardhala, yeah.
Yeah. And then they would knock it down at the end.
Yeah, with people like fling coins at it.
Yeah, so this is where everyone donates their bad dice, and then at the end we smash them all.
I like that. I also, there's a lot of different ways to do it. Like there's an anime convention I used to go to, and there was like a steampunk like cosplay group of people that would go, which who knows why. But one of the fundraisers they would do was they had a jail, and they would go arrest your friends and put them in jail and like take photos of them and for posting on your various social medias. Something like that, but for dice, right? Or donate your dice to Dice Hala so that they could, die in honorable combat.
That's right, Dice Hala. Give me some sort of like donation kind of thing, or like some giant void where you throw your dice into for the final time.
Right, yeah.
And I think you could like angle it in a certain way, right? I think it'd be good.
I think so. And then one here, because I think we have a lot of discussions. Anthony and I used to do a feature which was like Meeple Court, where we would take like hot takes at the time and then debate them, like one side, like sleeve or not to sleeve a game. That's kind of the classic conversation people have. But if you did that at a convention, I think it would just be a lot of fun if there was a place to actually have those kind of quasi important conversations that come up in tabletop gaming, but actually to have a booth with a judge that would actually settle those disputes that you have with your game group right there and then.
I like that. I like the idea that you outsource it a bit because, look, we've all seen the Reddit threads of somebody who's like, here's the thing that happened in my game, and the opinion is right down the middle. Or maybe you don't get the nuanced judgment take that you were looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be like a Judge Hodgman type situation.
Exactly. And we could kind of finally deal with those things once and for all. You have like a real rules lawyer on site.
Ooh.
Love it.
So start with you, Will. You've been to a lot of conventions. Has there ever been, it doesn't have to be tabletop explicit, but like anything that for you like was a really interesting, dynamic, cool experience that maybe the tabletop could kind of incorporate?
Yeah. So I will get my first answer out of the way quickly, which is the Wizards of the Coast ice cream truck.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was the coolest thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. And I have been upset at every convention and conference that I've been to that did not have its own dedicated ice cream truck. It was beautiful.
Say more though, because it's interesting. Yeah,
it was very interesting because as I'm talking about it, you're probably sitting there thinking, "Oh, Wizards of the Coast just got like some Freezy Pops and handed them out of a truck." That's not what happened. They had a like artisanal ice cream truck that made ice cream dessert sundaes and stuff based on Wizards of the Coast properties. Now, granted, I'm sure the ice cream truck just made up some stuff and then they like put names on it. But for one of them, for example, it was like themed on Dungeons and Dragons. It was the Dragon's Hoard. And I think the ice cream was red, maybe, if I remember it correctly, or something. And it had gold flecks in it. Like it had edible gold. It was amazing. And there was like a bunch of different things that you could get that catered to all groups of people. And there's like Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons and every property that you can think of. It was really cool. And it was a really nice, like, yes, it's advertising. And very clearly they did it so that people would be like, oh, they'll take pictures, put it on Instagram, whatever. But I thought it was really cool. And it was unique. It was a unique thing that I'd never seen done before. And that's a really cool thing. So that would be my first answer. But I've been to a lot of anime conventions, a lot of fandom conventions. And one of the things that I really like about those conventions is that they're different from one another at different size and at different people requirements and things like that, right? So something you might see at a massive convention might be really cool, and they might have a massive variety of things, and they might have something you could do at all hours of the day or night, right? But something at a medium or a small convention size might not have as much, but they might have more unique things that are catered more specifically to that group. And I think it's something that maybe, I could stand to see a little bit more of in the board gaming space, tabletop gaming space. Because I like the idea of it's wide ranging, but it's specific. So one specific example I always like is at anime conventions, one of the things they'll have is they'll have a room that 24 hours a day just plays anime and movies and stuff like that. Like something like that where, who cares? You're bored. You have 20 minutes. You can go, you can sit and watch a half an episode of something or half a movie or whatever. And maybe you go and watch it, at home. Or maybe it's a classic that you never would have seen before. Like best example, I went to my hometown anime convention one time and they were playing an anime movie that had been lost media for like decades because it only came out on like Betamax or on Laserdisc and like, Betamax essentially. And it was like, okay, somebody had a copy of this and donated it to the convention for the weekend. And they had a guy who like somehow through the power of dongles had made it so a laser disc player could go to a massive projector screen, but it was like you would never be able to see this movie. You could, I'm sure, in later days, download a rip of it on the internet or somewhere, right? But like that kind of thing, where it's like, this is an opportunity to be exposed to something that maybe you wouldn't have been exposed to in this hobby, in this fandom, and giving you an opportunity to just stumble into those things.
Very cool. How about you, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, I've exclusively been at either tabletop conventions or boring marketing conventions. So I guess the tabletop conventions could learn by having branded swag from every company that you just pick up as you walk around.
True.
No, but seriously, I think for me, one of the things that would be amazing, and this is something I've seen periodically at some conventions, but it's never been consistent, is just easy, accessible spaces that are quieter, calmer. There was a 1 year at Origins, the 1 year I brought my kids, they had a Pokemon room, which I guess is something they did a lot, but it was quiet, it was darker. They were playing Pokemon on like screens, but it wasn't too loud. Sure. It was a place to bring kids when they got overstimulated. And it was perfect because at the time my son was like 7 and my daughter was like 3, and they got very quickly overstimulated in any other part of the convention. So it was just a nice place to go and relax. And they could, like, there was coloring pages, and like obviously that's catered towards children, but having that for everybody would be. And I know that there are always those spaces. PAX has those quieter rooms, but they're often not very big, and they're often pretty crowded. And then that kind of defeats the purpose of the quiet space. Like, can we have a darker room? Like screening rooms, like you said, like at the anime convention, that's great. I think there was a convention once where I just like slipped in and watched part of a movie for a few minutes. Sure. Gen Con often has like an arcade room where you can go in and pay for a few, like 45 minutes at a PC and just play a video game. Mm-hmm. And it's dark and quiet. And as an introvert who sometimes just gets overstimulated and it's too much, it's just nice to be able to step out of that, because otherwise by like 6 o'clock, so mentally fried, like I don't want to go to the parties, I don't want to do anything else, I want to go to bed. So having kind of like the ability to regulate throughout the day, and the conventions, they often don't support that. They're like the theme park model of like more. But like, how can we balance that out a little bit for people?
Sure. Well, some of the, I would say along the lines of what Will said here too. I mean, obviously I find that, and I know it's very difficult and very expensive, but I think theming is so extremely important for a convention. When you go to any of these large conventions, it's nearly impossible because the cost of decorating or naming foods and things like that takes a lot of work and effort. That being said, all of these places are almost identical, and that's a bad thing. Like, they're beige or some kind of gray or have some really weird kind of carpet, and you don't feel like you're in a place until like you really have to like dig deep into the kind of experience. So on that same note, I think CGE, when I went over to see their room and some of their games there, they were showing off Wispwood. I think you mentioned this last week, Anthony. Mm-hmm. And the game itself is supposed to be this kind of nighttime animal kind of thing. That being said, like, they went all out to create a thematic experience of an outside of their main room. There was this kind of like fake kind of like jungle area. Mm-hmm. And they had, for whatever reason, the game itself does not come with or benefit from like blacklight and like neon, but they went all out. Like, they had black lights and they had like neon colors and things on the table to kind of give you more of a thematic vibe for what the game is trying to give to you. And I remember this way back when. I think it might have even been one of the first conventions you and I went to, Anthony, where Mysterium, I think when it came out in the Polish release, and I think we might have seen it at Gen Con. If you don't know Mysterium, you should, because it's a great game. It's basically Dixit, but what if it was psychics trying to figure out a murder? So it's got a somewhat of a D&D Scooby-Doo kind of mystery element to it. So like, I remember the first time coming across a booth that was like all decorated up as this haunted mansion, and it was a real experience, like playing a game in that kind of thematic environment really incentivize me not only just to buy the game, but like it becomes memorable. If I have to be in another beige room with another beige chair or in a giant hall and I'm trying to gain an experience, as you were saying, Anthony, with like all the noise around me, like it's just the same experience and you're trying to remember the game. But if they change the environment, it really is impactful. Like I said, I remember that Mysterium booth from way back when.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed when these companies go the step beyond and they build something out where it's just like, oh, I came to a convention. I know they're just here to sell games, but like I had an experience with their booth.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it for me.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, like that was 10 years ago. That's I do remember that booth. That's funny.
Yeah, and we don't see that much anymore, and I understand because it's a lot of setup and space is expensive. And
yeah, Upper Deck used to do that a lot. Like they brought in like the truck from
oh, that's right.
What's it? Little Trouble, Big Trouble in Little China,
or even what Will was talking about too. Which what was the game? Trash Talking. Will you reviewed
Trash Talk with the dumpster? Yeah.
Oh yeah,
and I remember the dumpster,
yeah.
Which seemed ridiculous. They had a dumpster at a convention to promote their game, and I was like, I remember the dumpster. Just like it gave me a memorable experience, considering the rest of the hall was just like beige and gray and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's funny.
I would really like to see a lot more of that. I'd like to see that kind of experience kind of sussed out a little bit more. I also, like you said, I think there's just generally a lot of experience. Like you said, there's video game playing, which I haven't seen much anymore, but that was obviously a very fun experience. I think, like you said, the anime room where you could just walk in, sit down, enjoy something. What I would like to see or wish for more in the future, and we've talked about this endlessly, and I'm sure anybody who's been to a big convention is, there needs to be places to sit that aren't the corners of the convention hall.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to. I understand space is expensive, and I know everybody wants to be like in the core of things, but like every couple of booths, there needs to be a bench. I'm sorry, there needs to be a bench, not for game playing, but like for just sitting down for like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah,
and I think it's such a small thing because you just need to have benches or inflatable furniture or something like that. Just because it you get exhausted, you just get burnt out. You want to take a minute, and if you sit at the bench, you can like reflect and your memory can kind of set in. And again, it's a simple thing and it's not a great grandiose witch, but like, you know, like a store, every store has they have to have X number of parking spots for that store to be allowed to be built there to kind of accommodate the customers. So just considering the size of the booth, you need to have a bench or some chairs. Like you just need to. You can't have everyone standing all day long. Like There's a reason why publishers put in like really nice floor mats for their workers because they can't stand the whole day. So like you need to do that for people. If you can't line the floor, which is expensive, I get it. Benches. I'm just saying benches. I don't want it. I mean, it's so weird when you go to a convention and you have to go like the uttermost edges for tables, and they're always packed, and like people are eating there, which is cool. And then there's like 3 or 4 dozen people like lying down or sleeping or sitting down like on the floor of the convention hall. Like, dear God, what happened to these people?
Mm-hmm.
It's like there was no place to sit.
Yeah.
And they had to walk. And again, you have to walk to the ends of the earth to be able to sit down because you can't sit down in the middle of the hall. Benches, people, benches.
Yeah, well, especially in the spaces that conventions are in, I don't necessarily think that's an impossible ask. Because I've been to a bunch of anime conventions and fandom conventions where, you know, some of the nicest times I had were wandering to some weird area of the hotel outside of some of the rooms and just sitting down and reading something or being able to finally look through something I had just bought and, you know, recollect myself and go on, which is actually very funny because Megan, who went with us, she had said to me while we were walking somewhere, she's like, everybody's just really okay with just sitting on the floor in here. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right, but they're all tired, and it's not that they're okay with it. It's not that these are just floor time people. It's just that there isn't anything else to do.
You just have to, yeah.
I mean, look, it's a real accessibility issue.
It is,
period.
Absolutely.
And if we, generally healthy people, like are exhausted or like our feet I have blisters on my feet coming out of those conventions. It's just like, should that be a thing? Should that be is that a necessary experience? Like, do I have to stand and/or walk the entire time? I don't know. I feel like it's such a weird thing. I mean, in the middle of the convention hall, in the middle of New York City, there's Central Park, because like there needs to be a place of rest, even despite all the activity. So if you're going to have a giant convention hall, maybe the middle of the hall needs to be tables and chairs and benches or something, so people could take a break and, have that moment. Because it blurs. It's too much. It's too much, man. I dream of a place that has benches.
It reminds me of if you ever seen like a picture of an old like Soviet subway stop, where it's all like beautiful art and it looks nice and there's like all this immersive stuff and like there's nowhere to sit. It's like, I never would have thought of that until like you look at this big empty space. Because after the marathon left, when we were at PAX, I remember looking in the windows of the adjoining hall where all the marathon stuff was, and it's just a barn, concrete floor, and just trash laid out everywhere because they were cleaning it up and everything. And I was like, that sucks. We're just in a different version of that. So they just put nicer stuff, I guess.
Pretty much, yeah. Giant concrete room.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, gentlemen, any last thoughts about your convention experience, past, present, or future?
I think
all right.
I was going to say, I think the only last thought I had was having more stuff going on in the intervening time. That doesn't feel like you're always just walking from one thing to another. That like there's stuff on the way, that you're having an experience, that you're in something rather than just like, I am walking in a line of people that are going to this part of the convention.
Yeah, make it more like an amusement park, like where the act of standing in line or the act of moving between things is actually an experience in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if you, like, for example, if people cosplay, which they do, whatever the convention happens to be, like, give them free attendance. Like, they're going to be walking around the halls. Like, cosplay people are awesome. So I would love the idea that those people got recognized and, like, give them some sort of, like, official badge or something and give them a free, registration to walk around, because they will. And that just brings fun to the convention.
Yeah, I think I might change the math of the thing a little bit, because I remember when we went to Gen Con, there were some booths that had really gone very extra, and it was almost like old school E3, if that's not too far of a throwback. Like, I remember, it wasn't Modifius, but it was somebody else like that, where they had like a cosplayer that they had paid to cosplay as the main character in one of their new products. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, nobody else on the floor has done that. They are one of the few people that is like so immersed in the thing. And I was thinking at Gen Con, the year Malediction came out, and like that whole booth was just a statement and a half. Like, it was, here's what we're about, here's our new thing, pew pew pew, something that does that, because I think you said it earlier that if it's going to be like a theme park, make it more like a theme park, like a functional theme park, not just here's a park, go nuts,
Yeah. Here's a sales floor, go buy things.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
All right, everyone. So that's everything for this week. Until next time, this is Chris.
This is Anthony.
This is Will.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Hello. If you're hearing my voice, it's because you're listening to a podcast on Podderation, the network of podcasts for nerds, by nerds, all about nerds. That's right, I'm Wythe Marshall. I'm one of the 2 hosts of Why We Roll, a TTRPG design podcast from the Stillfleet studio. The other host is Christopher Pickett, creator of the game Danse Macabre. I created a game called Stillfleet and co-developed a game called Blister Critters. We're always talking about TTRPGs, how to design them, what makes them so fun, where they're headed in the future, and actually also the industry, practical advice. So if you're interested in any of those subjects, check out Why We Roll. And hey, thanks for checking out any and all of Potteration's great work. We really appreciate you. Enjoy your listening.